Thank you,
This
Sarah.
meeting is being recorded.
Good morning, everyone. Patrick DeRay here, Chief of the Bureau of Automotive Repair. I want to welcome everyone to the third meeting of 2021 for our BAR Advisory Group. As most of you know, we have quarterly meetings, this is our third of 4 meetings planned for calendar year 2021. We've had a busy year during the pandemic, as well as last year, getting much of our work done despite many of the challenges that we're all going through on a daily basis. I think we've said this time and time again that the challenges presented with pretty wide-scale telework opportunities that were necessitated by the pandemic led to rethinking the way we were doing a lot of our business processes, moving more towards an electronic and digitalized world, which we were already doing, but that was accelerated by the pandemic and our need to respond and be more flexible in our approaches and working with our staff to get work done and be responsive to our various stakeholders, our consumers, our industry, our licensed industry, and obviously all of the other folks who depend on our services. We have a pretty busy agenda planned today, and we'll get started in just a minute after I make a couple of announcements. We also have a regulatory workshop that will follow the advisory group meeting. We'll use the same link as you did for participating in this BAR advisory group meeting, and it'll be a discussion, a second discussion, if you will, on our next phase of plans to extend our citation program to violations of the Automotive Repair Act, and not just limited to smog check violations or violations for unlicensed activity. So that'll begin using this same link at 2 p.m., that workshop. Let's go ahead with introducing the BAR advisory group members. Some of them have been able to put their associations behind their names. And I've asked each of the members, if when speaking or asking a question, to be able to introduce themselves again, just for sake of clarity for the viewing public. Let's see. I'm going to go down the list. We do have, Anthony Bento. Anthony Bento is here representing the California New Car Dealers Association. Excuse me, Anthony. Welcome.
Thank you. Looking forward to today's meeting.
Bud Rice is here. He is representing the Independent Automotive Professionals Association, also known as IAPA. Nikki Ayers, standing in for Nikki Ayers, he is. We have Christina Bowders, representing the Automotive Oil Change Association. Dave Husa, representing the Automotive Service Councils of California, also known as ASCCA.
Thank you, Pat. Good morning.
Good morning. We have David Robinette. David, you are representing the ICAR Inter-Industry Conference on Auto Collision Repair. I had to find it on my checklist there, my sheet.
Well done, Pat. Thank you.
ICAR is so much easier.
Just say ICAR, yes.
ICAR. Yes. John or Johan Gallo, representing the California Automotive Business Coalition, also known as CalABC. Gary Conover, representing the CAWA, or California Automotive Wholesalers Association.
Good morning.
Good morning. Jack Molodonov, representing the California Auto Body Association.
Good morning.
And many others, but that's the primary role he serves on the advisory group, representing the Auto Body Association here of California. We have Jeff Cox with AMRA MAP, which stands for the Automotive Maintenance and Repair Association / Motorist Assurance Program. That's AMRA MAP.
Well done, Patrick.
We have Lou Anapolsky, representing the firm of Knox, Lemon, Anapolsky, and Shrimp, LLP. Welcome, Lou. We have Rick Escalambre, representing the California Automotive Teachers. He's sitting in for George Ritz today. Welcome, Rick. Ruben Parra, who also joins us representing the California Automotive Teachers. Thank you both for
Good morning.
being here for that.
Glad to be here.
Yep, good to see you. We have Vince Gregory representing AAA of Northern California.
Good morning, Pat.
Good morning, Vince. And I believe, have I missed anyone? Did I leave anyone off? I know the Southern California Association for AAA was unable to join us for this meeting today. Megan McKernan said she would be unable to make it, nor could her alternate stand in or fill in for her today. So we are missing them from today's meeting, but we'll certainly keep them up to date or apprised of anything going on. All of our presentations are available. They have been for at least the last 10 days to be able to say that we've done our best to meet with the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act requirements with our meeting agenda and public notice. So hope all of you have had a chance to peruse those at your convenience in preparation for today's meeting. I just want to say I've had a really busy month, and I hope all of you have had an enjoyable summer. In my family, we had a couple of graduations. My son from college, which was really quite a rewarding experience to be able to visit that in person. We thought it was going to be a virtual graduation, but we were able to attend two attendees in person, his mother and I, with the rest of the family watching virtually. But it was a very enjoyable experience going down to LA and seeing him graduate. If all goes well, looking forward to him starting law school this fall. So very excited about that. And then a high school graduation. So my youngest son, finishing up high school in the Sacramento area, all remote schooling. Very challenging for him this last year and a half, but did very well. And he'll be heading off to college down in LA as well in just a month or so. They start a little early on the semester programs. So looking forward to that. So with all three of my sons will be away, and I'll be an empty nester, as they say. Trying to figure out how to keep my time other than playing tennis and things like that. But it'll be a little lonelier in the house without the three of them. So anyway, I hope all of you are having and getting through this challenging time and doing well. Hopefully you're getting out there and able to have vacations again and experience life as it was prior to the beginning of this this changed world that we're now in. Anyway, we will. Sorry for that. I just wanted to kind of share a few things that I was very proud of with my my son's accomplishments, and looking forward to the new family situation and a new life experience starting this fall. Let's get on with the meeting. We have an exciting agenda planned for all of you. We have, as we always do, news from the Department of Consumer Affairs, our parent organization, the umbrella organization that serves all of the approximately 200 licensing professions, licensed professions in the state of California, and a number of which are that we administer under the Bureau of Automotive Repair. So without further ado, let's introduce Carrie Holmes, who is a deputy director with the department's Board and Bureau Relations Office, right there next to the director. Thank you, Carrie, and welcome.
Thank you, Chief Dore, and good morning, advisory group members. I am Carrie Holmes, Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations at the Department of Consumer Affairs. Thank you for allowing me to provide this update. COVID-19 has affected every aspect of our work for more than a year. California reached a major milestone June 15th, and our economy is officially back open. Thank you to Chief Dore and staff who have been working so hard to maintain excellent customer service throughout these times. Board staff and bureau staff, like all state employees, made a sacrifice to assist all Californians when they continued to serve throughout the pandemic under a 10% pay cut, some also foregoing cost of living increases or expected raises. As the economy comes roaring back, we are happy to see that these cuts will be reversed. DCA is working with all boards and bureaus to manage any budget impact. We know things are moving quickly, and there's a lot of information, both official and unofficial. On June 17th, Governor Newsom signed an executive order expediting Cal OSHA's revised COVID-19 regulations to ensure consistency with public health guidance. Cal OSHA's revisions align with the latest face covering guidance from the Department of Public Health and eliminate physical distancing, except for certain employees during outbreaks. As Pat mentioned in his update, boards and bureaus are assessing operational needs to identify potential for permanent changes to the workplace. These are to assure efficiency and employee well-being, such as telework and hybrid workplace models. DCA is receiving many questions about when and how boards and committees will meet again in person, and how they can also continue to meet remotely. The ability of the group to meet remotely is tied to the governor's executive orders in the state of emergency. The executive order is set to expire September 30th, after which time boards and committees will be required to follow all aspects of the Open Meetings Act, including publicly noticed and accessible locations, unless a change in law happens. I think we all recognize the value of the cost savings and increased public participation associated with remote meeting options. In the meantime, DCA will do all it can to assist you to transition safely to in-person meetings and keep everyone informed of changes to meeting requirements. One last reminder that 2021 is a mandatory sexual harassment prevention training year. This means all employees and advisory group members are required to complete the training throughout this year. Please be advised that you will now access this training through the Learning Management System, or LMS, which is DCA's training portal. We have created profiles for each of you in the LMS and informed the chief of the steps you will need to take to log in and access the training. Board and Bureau Relations is happy to assist you with any questions or concerns you have about LMS. As always, Board and Bureau Relations is here to help. If there's anything I can do to assist, please reach out. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the advisory group members? Maybe I'll just step in here. I didn't have a chance because we don't have opportunities to meet other than through the advisory group meetings without violating Bagley-Keene and open meeting requirements. And I know it's not necessarily a statutorily created body that's necessarily held to the Bagley-Keene requirements, but we do certainly try to observe it because that's something that the department's expectations are, and certainly mine as well, holding myself to that standard. So we didn't have a chance to talk about the sexual harassment training that is now going to be required of all advisory group members. This is a new requirement, and I don't know how is the communication from the department to the advisory group members. Maybe they've already received it and I'm not aware of it. How will that take place? Carrie, if you could kind of share some of that, the details of that with us.
Sure. Thanks so much for asking, Pat. And I do think this is new for your group members. And the department does take the stance that even for groups that are not that are not created in statute. We really want everyone who may be interacting with staff to have the same training to maintain safety for everyone. And so at this point, the LMS is rolling out. So folks should begin getting an email from DCA that lays out the LMS instructions. If you haven't yet, I will check in with my staff and see where we are in that rollout. It may be that you haven't gotten them yet. We've got a little more time left in the year. And then Pat, I think you should have gotten the basic instructions that you can share, but everyone should be getting that personally as well. So I can check in and see where we are in that.
The other question I had, Carrie, if many of our organizations probably have similar sexual harassment trainings, can something substitute for the state training that's done? I can't remember how long the course is. I obviously have done the course many times over the years. Is there something they could hand in as a certificate saying they've done their own training through their companies or their associations? Or because obviously this isn't just something that's happening with state agencies. It's obviously something that impacts everyone, even in the private sector.
I think that would be a case-by-case basis. The department really does want to maintain consistency and make sure everyone's getting the same standards, but there are some very similar trainings, especially if someone does work for another government agency. So if a member thinks that they've done something very similar, they can always share that, and we can have our training folks look at the outline of what they did. But in general, we do want folks to go through the same training.
I think it's an online, I know it's an online tutorial video with a number of scenarios that you go through, hypotheticals and discussion of the various ways that the potential for sexual harassment can occur in the workforce. If memory serves me correct, it's not any more than maybe somewhere around an hour and a half to 2 hours, if I'm correct.
Yes, you kind of go at your own pace, so it shouldn't take any longer than that. And it is helpful. Some of it, may feel pretty basic, but DCA does have a zero tolerance policy, so it's important to just know where those lines are, who things apply to, and what to do if anything goes wrong.
Okay. Any questions from now that I've kind of opened the door for something with some further discussion on this topic? Any questions or comments relative to Carrie's presentation or the upcoming requirement and expectation to complete the sexual harassment training? There's a hand raise feature, I believe. Moderator, is there not? Yes.
Yes, this is the moderator. If any of the advisory group members would like to raise their hand to speak, you'll have to open up that participant panel, and the hand should show up next to your name. And it looks like we do have a hand raised from Johan.
Johan Gallo, yes, with California Automotive Business Coalition, or CalABC.
Good day, Carrie. I did have a question again. What was the deadline for the date that's supposed to be completed?
Sure, it needs to be completed during this year, so by the end of 2021. So you have a little bit of time.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking that, Johan. And your mic was a little faint to hear your question. I made it out, but I think maybe others might have had similar difficulty. Maybe there's a volume issue that you can address. The question was, when is the deadline? And Ms. Holmes said calendar year 2021. So by the end of the year.
Correct. I'll turn the volume up. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments relative to presentation from Carrie? Okay, let's see, none from the advisory group. How about from the public? We have the Q&A feature, moderator.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the Bureau, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please click that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. We're currently sharing instructions on the screen for your reference, and in the Ask field, typically in the lower right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, please type, "I would like to make a public comment," and send to all panelists. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to give the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, this is the moderator, and it appears there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, you may. Thank you.
All right,
Moderator,
the
or-
Q&A panel is now closed.
All right. I think we have exhausted all of our questions and comments. We only got that one, so and mine. Thank you, Carrie, for the presentation. I appreciate you joining us again today, and look forward to seeing you or someone from the director's office at our fourth quarter meeting or our fourth meeting of the calendar year. Excuse me, not our fourth quarter meeting, but in October.
Thank you so much, Pat. Thank you, members. Have a great meeting.
Thank you, Carrie. All right, I should have mentioned at the outset too that this meeting, as with all of our public meetings, is being webcast, and a full recording of the meeting and that webcast will be available on our website next week. Usually takes a few days to get that done and posted, but I expect by the end of next week that'll be available. So check back if you're interested in going back to hear any part of this meeting. All right, our next presenter is Holly O'Connor with our executive office here at BAR to give us an update on legislation and regulations. Welcome, Holly.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're doing well this morning. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Holly O'Connor, the Legislative and Regulatory Specialist here at BAR. And today I will be providing a legislation update as well as an update on our pending regulatory packages. Do I have control of the slideshow?
This is the moderator. One moment while we get that set up, and I will pass over presenter role.
Thank you.
All right, and now you should have control.
Okay, perfect. Well, before I begin, I quickly want to say that although every effort is made to ensure that the information provided on these slides is the most current, given the nature of the legislative process, hearing dates or bill summaries shown here may not reflect the latest updates. For the most current bill information, you can go to www.leginfo.legislator.ca.gov. Okay, the first slide shows some noteworthy dates. The last day for policy committees to meet and report bills was yesterday. And the other notable dates are last day for fiscal committees to meet and report bills, the last day to amend bills on the floor, the last day for any bill to be passed, and October 10th is the last day for the governor to sign or veto bills. All right, these are the 7 bills that I will be discussing today, beginning with AB 220. This bill would exempt motor vehicles manufactured between 1976 and 1983 from smog check if the owner can provide proof that the vehicle is insured as a collector car. Currently, the exemption applies to pre-1976 vehicles. On April 13th, this was re-referred to the Assembly Committee on Transportation. AB 294 will be discussed on the next 3 slides, and this bill would establish a towing and storage board within the Department of Consumer Affairs to issue permits to any business that tows and or stores a vehicle and maintain a public database of those permit holders. The board may also, the board may also resolve disputes and make determinations associated with the towing and storage of vehicles. And this bill would repeal existing law that deems storage fees reasonable if they're comparable to storage related rates and fees charged by other facilities in the same locale. All right, this bill would also add the board's authority information to the current towing and storage fees access notice, and would establish penalties of up to $10,000 per violation. On January 28th, this bill was referred to the Assembly Committees on Transportation and Business and Professions. Okay, the next one is AB 467. And this would exempt vehicles from smog check that have been issued a license plate for vehicles for historic exhibition that have had an engine of 16 or more cylinders manufactured prior to 1965, or for vehicles that were manufactured prior to 1923, or vehicles that were manufactured after 1922 that are at least 25 years old and are of historic interest. This bill is referred to the Assembly Committee on Transportation on February 18th. Okay. All right, the next one is AB 471. And this bill is intended to update some of the existing statutes relating to the Bureau's regulation and enforcement of violations by, first of all, creating a 3-member informal citation panel with the authority to allow automotive repair dealers with certain low-level citations to complete a remedial training course, and upon completion, avoid having the citation listed on BAR's website. This does have a 3-year sunset provision so that the legislator can review how the informal panel is using its authority in practice. This bill would also provide the Bureau with more information about repair dealers' educational certifications, and this bill would require BAR to adopt regulations for a vehicle safety inspection and certification program by January 1st, 2024. This bill was passed by the Assembly on June 1st, and it was passed by the Senate Business Professions and Economic Development Committee on June 30th, and the Senate Judiciary Committee on July 13th. This bill now goes to the Senate Appropriations Committee and will most likely be heard next month. AB 646 is next. If a person's license is revoked due to a criminal conviction, but that person has obtained an expungement, the Bureau may charge a fee for the reasonable cost of administering this section, and the Bureau must remove the initial website posting of the license revocation. And if the person reapplies for licensure or has been relicensed, the Bureau must post a notification of expungement order on the Bureau's website. As of May 20th, the hearing was postponed by the Committee on Appropriations. AB 745 would require the Air Resources Board to provide low-income people living in disadvantaged communities vouchers to be used to purchase zero-emissions vehicles that fail their smog check inspection, so long as the repair cost of each replaced vehicle is greater than the maximum amount provided by the Bureau's Consumer Assistance Program. This bill was also postponed by the Committee on Appropriations on May 20th. SB 586 would require every ignition interlock provider to annually report to the Bureau the provider's fee schedule and other financial information related to the interlock ignition devices, and failure to meet this requirement would be punishable as a crime and would impose a state-mandated local program. This bill was passed by the Senate on June 2nd and was referred to the Assembly Committee on Public Safety on June 10th. That is it for our legislation update. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Holly, for the presentation. Very good with keeping up to date with the latest changes, especially to AB 471, while we do everything possible to make sure these bills are up to date. posting of the presentations at least 10 days prior to the meeting, as we're trying to observe the Bagley-Keene open meeting requirements, and have that information up and available and accessible. Sometimes prevents the most up-to-date information on some of these bills. So thank you for giving the latest update, especially as it relates to AB 471 with respect to the amendments that happened and the current status. Any questions or comments from advisory group members? Just please raise a hand through the raise hand feature of the WebEx. And then we'll move to regulations next. Any questions or comments? Okay, we'll reserve moderator the public portion until the entire presentation is completed. All right, let's move to regulations update portion of your presentation. Holly, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Here's a list of our 6 current regulatory proposals, and I will first begin with the Smog check equipment security and fraud prevention, also known as our biometrics package. This package requires the use of biometric and web camera devices when performing a Smog check. It requires that Smog check stations allow bar access whenever inspections are being performed, even if those inspections occur outside of normal business hours. And it also requires that Smog check inspectors allow bar staff remote access to the inspection process via the internet when prompted by the bar OIS software. We held a workshop on this package October 22nd, 2020. And a few days ago, on July 12th, this package was moved forward to the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency for approval. Once approved by agency, the 45-day public comment period will begin. Package, which amends STAR eligibility criteria, ensures the STAR suspension process is consistent with statute and deletes outdated Gold Shield program provisions. This package is currently undergoing the 45-day public comment period, which will end on August 10th. And once the comment period is over, we will finalize the package with the final statement of reasons to be submitted to OAL for review and adoption. The next one is our Smog check repair assistance package. This was adopted as an emergency regulation on August 31st, 2020, and that emergency regulation is extended through January 29th, 2022. This package provides higher repair contributions based on vehicle model year. It reduces pre-repair diagnostic fees for low-income vehicle owners and removes unnecessary eligibility restrictions pertaining to vehicle registration. This package is also undergoing the 45-day public comment period right now, and this one ends August 3rd. And same thing, once the comment period is over, we finalize the package to be submitted to OAL for review and adoption. Next, the laws and regulations training package. This amends bar disciplinary guidelines to establish laws and regulations training as a rehabilitative option for respondents. Administrative law judges and bar would have the option to require, as a condition of probation or relicensure, training in compliance with the Automotive Repair Act and regulations. We are currently finalizing this package with the final statement of reasons for review, and then that will be submitted to OAL for their review and adoption. The auto body equipment and supplemental restraint systems package requires auto body repair shops to have access to all repair, testing, and measuring equipment and current reference materials necessary to diagnose, section, replace, or repair structural damage. This package also requires that all auto body repair equipment meets current trade standards for the work being performed and adds the following components to the definition of supplemental restraint system These components are airbag modules, airbag sensors, computer modules, inflatable restraint systems, seat belts, seatbelt pre-tensioners, seat structural components, and steering columns. And this package is currently undergoing formal review with DCA. Our next package is the Citation Program for Automotive Repair Act violations. This package expands BAR's citation program to cover automotive repair dealer violations of the Automotive Repair Act by specifying citable sections. It establishes a fee structure for citations and clarifies regulatory language under existing articles. This afternoon, we are holding a public workshop on this package and plan to submit to DCA for informal review by the end of the month. That's it for our current regulation packages. Are there any questions on these?
I'll jump in real quickly, Holly, before we open it up for the hands raised feature from the advisory group members. Could you go to slide 16?
Yes.
Yeah, the biometrics package had some very interesting news. Very excited to announce. I don't know if you did, but this package is now beyond the Department of Consumer Affairs. It's now at our agency level. Very happy to report that, as many of you know, we were working back and forth with this package with our legal office, and we have now gotten past that, as well as through the director's office, to the point at which we're reviewing it at having agency, the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency that oversees our department, review that package before it'll go to OAL. So I'm very excited about that recent development in the last few days. And then slide 21. Excuse me, slide 20.
Okay. Yes.
I made a mistake. Yeah, I believe on that last bullet or dash, adopt the following components. As I recall, we had the supplemental restraint system is already defined as an airbag in statute. I can't remember if it's vehicle code or where it appears. So that definition of a supplemental restraint system to include all these additional features will not be, have to be reworded, because a supplemental restraint system, according to the statute, is also known as an airbag. So all these other components, I think we'll have to figure out how to reword that in our regulations. So we're struggling with that right now, or I think we've maybe just recently gotten through that little impediment that was pointed out to us by our legal counsel. So that's just a minor change to this package that I wanted to announce. And I can't remember where this package is. Can you advance a slide, Holly? Thank you. Yeah, we're still going through the DCA formal review process, and hope to have a 45-day public comment period begin shortly. All right, questions. I see David Robinette's hand raised. David obviously is representing ICAR, and would you have a comment on the Autobot, on this same package, the auto body equipment and supplemental restraint systems, or another package?
Question around that restraint systems question that you were just talking about. Is that something as simple as just having those additional items, identifying the components of a supplemental restraint system in the definitions rather than in the statute?
Well, I think that's what we're trying to do. As I recall, they were calling, they weren't saying that this, initially the draft was saying that this made up the supplemental restraint system, but we couldn't do that because it conflicted with statute. So now I think the definition is components. These are component parts to the supplemental restraint system, if memory serves me correct. So I think we're saying the same thing. If not, we're having to work around the statute to address these other items that we want featured in our regulation. So it wasn't as simple as saying these are these are the supplemental restraint. This makes up the supplemental restraint system because the supplemental restraint system is already defined in statute. So these are the component parts to the supplemental restraint system.
Gotcha. So it sounds like it's just a
Semantics.
a semantic and maybe just in definitions and then using the broader term for the legislation. Okay, just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, had to get a little creative there in our wording of our regulation to comply or comport with the statute.
Very well. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go scrolling down. I also see Ruben Para with California Automotive Teachers, hand raised.
Hello, everybody. I'm sorry, I missed my first opportunity with the first set of slides on the vehicle inspections. Could you go back to that slide, please, on the first set? I'm sorry, I missed that opportunity.
On the legislation?
Yes.
Sure, no problem.
Okay.
Right here?
Yes, so I'm just curious as to, has it been defined who will be doing the inspections and how those inspectors will be trained? Are they to follow the same procedures as smog inspections currently are, or how has that been defined?
None of that's been defined in the legislation. It leaves many of those elements of defining the parameters of the program to the Bureau of Automotive Repair through the regulation process, working with our stakeholders. Okay, so that will probably be brought up to the advisory board again at some point in the future? Oh, most definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
We're not going to be able to do this in a vacuum without your important advisory role and
okay.
Kind of guiding us on. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think the first and foremost, what I think it envisions the way the bill is drafted is a merger of, if you will, of the existing programs, lamp and brake programs that are separated in statute. They are two separate licensing programs with two separate licensing fees, licensed stations. They're not. Many of them are the same. It's the same population, but they are two different licenses held by the individuals who apply for the program, both the stations as well as the technicians or adjusters. This envisions a merger of those two programs for efficiency purposes, I believe, into one program, and then gives BAR the ability to add additional features, working with our stakeholders to define potentially other features along the way. I'm not certain what those features will be. I don't even know if it'll be anything more than simply lamp and brake at the outset. That'll be enough for us to just merge the programs at the very beginning. But there is the potential, either if the bill is chaptered this year, I think it calls for a 2-year time frame to adopt these regulations. So we'll be under pressure to get even the lamp and brake merger done within 2 years through the regulatory process. So if we do it as part of the initial package, or maybe somewhere down the line to add additional features, that remains to be seen. We're not even there yet. First, still seeing if the bill will go through and through the legislature and get to the governor's desk for a decision on whether to sign it or not.
Very good, very exciting. That reminds me back when we had the presentation from the gentleman who spoke about vehicle inspections over a year ago, and the dramatic decrease in total accidents, collisions, and deaths that occurred through the states that implemented the safety inspection procedures, if you remember.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. That presentation should be available on our website. I believe it was, I think it was Aaron Lowe with the Car Care Council who gave the presentation roughly a couple of years ago. So it should be available on our website still.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Ruben. Other hands from the advisory group? Ruben, your hand's still up. Did you have another question or just left over from the last question?
I'm sorry, I left my hand up. There you go.
Okay, thank you. That presentation that Ruben referenced was January of 2020 regarding the vehicle safety inspection programs that are out there in other states, and some of the data that was compiled for that presentation. January 2020? Yep, thank you. Okay, seeing no other hands raised from the advisory group members, we will open it up for public comment. If you will, moderator, please open it up.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the Bureau, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, please click that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to give the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, and it does look like we have one individual who has requested public comment, individual identified as Jean.
Jean Lopez.
All right, and Jean, I will be unmuting your microphone. It will request for you to unmute, so please click that OK when it asks you to unmute. So I will be unmuting your microphone now.
Thank you.
Hello, Jean.
Hi, Steve Duray. Thanks for recognizing my name. This is Jean Lopez. I'm with Sidner's Collision Centers. I have a comment around the supplemental restraint systems. And I know I've brought this up before, and I know it may not be able to be put into this package, but there's a big concern around scanning vehicles for diagnostic trouble codes, and then perhaps calibrating the advanced driver assist systems. And I don't know that it can be put in this package, but I think it's very important that we recognize what the OEMs are recommending when it comes to scanning vehicles and requiring when it comes to calibrating vehicles. It needs to be put up front very, very soon. And if it can't be put in this package, then certainly before the year's end.
Excellent comment, Jean. Thank you very much. I know that we recognize the need for that, and it was kind of one of those issues where we need to walk before we run. And we had this package moving along prior, and I think it was just getting too busy of a package, too much to take on in one package. So I believe we have decided to move this package forward with the intention to follow right on the heels of it with another package where these type of issues that you're bringing up with respect to diagnostic trouble codes and the calibration of the ADAS systems, that maybe those types of issues, maybe a little more complicated than issues, could be addressed in a follow-on package. I don't know if that was part of your presentation, Holly, or not, but it is something we are working on with our team of experts here at the Bureau of Automotive Repair. And at the appropriate time, we'll bring it forward for all of the advisory group to weigh in on, and we'll have a workshop dedicated to it, much like we've done with all of the other packages that we work on.
Yeah, and I was remiss in not acknowledging Holly for her presentation. Thank you very much, Holly. Always respect your information and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
That's it for
Jean.
me. Yep. Thank you, guys.
Always a pleasure to see you at these meetings. Thank you for continuing to be an interested stakeholder in this process.
Of course, you're welcome.
Other comment, moderator? Did we get any other public comments?
This is the moderator, and it appears we have no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right.
I'll circle back. Any last minute observations, comments, questions from the advisory group before we close out this agenda item? All right. Seeing none, we will bid you adieu, Holly. Thank you very much for an excellent presentation on the legislation and regulations that we are tracking and working on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good to see you. All right. Our next presentation is on the BAR OIS, the OBD inspection system modified software implementation that is scheduled for July 19. And we have been working on this and communicating with the advisory group about the status and implementation plan for this effort for some time now. The meeting is very timely today in that we were able to meet with you one last time and give an update prior to going live with the rollout next week. So Paul Hedgeland with our engineering and research branch is here to give us an update on the status of that implementation. Welcome, Paul.
Good morning. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, modified software implementation. So to start off with, just a reminder that emission control system modifications are illegal. Per California Vehicle Code Section 27156, it's illegal to operate, modify, or sell a vehicle with tampered emissions controls. You cannot operate a motor vehicle with a removed, disabled, or broken pollution control device. You cannot disconnect, modify, or alter any such required device. You cannot install or sell any device that alters the original design or performance of the motor vehicle pollution control system. In summary, a vehicle's software is considered part of its emissions control system, therefore cannot be modified. The authority for BAR to fail vehicles during smog check for modified software was adopted into regulation in July 1st, 2013, specifically section 3340.42.2C8. which states the vehicle's OBD system data does not match the original equipment manufacturer or an Air Resources Board exempted OBD software configuration. Modified software checks will begin, as Pat said, next week, July 19th. That's when the BAR OBD inspection system inspected vehicles will begin failing when illegally modified emission control system software is identified. And if that occurs, the vehicle inspection report printed at the end of the inspection will indicate modified software. I'll show you what that looks like. So this is a sample vehicle inspection report. And as you notice in the middle, here's an overall test result box, and it says modified software. Now the inspection is broken into a visual inspection and a functional inspection. If you look at the functional area, it's also modified software failure. And then specifically further down under the functional check results, specifically the OBD test portion of the inspection is where the modified software is identified. Identifying modified software. So all vehicles requiring BAR OIS inspection are subject to the modified software check. And if you remember, that's most of the 2000 and newer model year vehicles with OBD2 systems and the 1998 and newer diesel powered vehicles, both categories under 14,001 gross vehicle weight. So each vehicle's OBD data is analyzed and compared to data from similar vehicles. If the inspected vehicle's data does not match an approved configuration, then the vehicle will fail for modified software. And please note the California Air Resources Board CARB executive order approved software will be allowed, will not cause a modified software failure. And our analysis indicates that about 5 to 10 vehicles will fail per day for modified software. If a vehicle fails for modified software, the vehicle software must be restored to an original equipment manufacturer version or a CARB executive order approved version. Once restored, the vehicle may be retested at any licensed smog check station, with one caveat that if the vehicle was directed to a STAR station or directed by BAR to a referee station, it must return to that station type. And lastly, modified software is considered a tamper inspection result and will exclude the vehicle from qualifying for BAR's repair assistance program until the tampered condition is corrected. So some outreach that we've put together for internal and external audiences include a new question and answer. It's found on our consumer smog check program, frequently asked questions page. And one correction to this first bullet, it's actually under the smog check results category instead of inspection issues category within the Q&As. So on our website, there's a Q&A, and I'll show you that Q&A in a moment. Secondly, you can review the newsletter article published on this subject. It's the Spring 2021 Auto Repair and Smog Check newsletter. And lastly, if there's a disputed inspection result, those will be referred to the referee for assistance. This is the question and answer that's on our public website. My vehicle failed a smog check for having modified software. What can I do? And it starts off announcing the date. This will start July 19th. Vehicles with software not provided by the original equipment manufacturer or not approved through a California Air Resources Board executive order will fail smog check. Before your vehicle will pass a smog check, you must take your vehicle to a licensed repair facility to have the vehicle software restored to the OEM version. Once the software is restored, have your vehicle re-inspected by a licensed smog check station. Note that vehicles initially directed to a STAR or referee station must return to that station type to complete the inspection process. And I should note here that a smog check repair facility will be needed for that repair type. And to continue the Q&A, if you believe the vehicle software is already OEM or CARB approved and yet you fail for modified software, you can schedule an appointment with the referee for an inspection. And lastly, if you unknowingly purchased a vehicle with illegally modified software, you may file a complaint with BAR. BAR may be able to moderate and help with the details of that situation. Okay, if a vehicle goes to the referee will ask the owner to provide substantiation that the vehicle has OEM software installed. So the dealer will need to provide documentation with a signature stating that the software version, Cal ID, and CVN are appropriate for that exact vehicle. And that's the proof required that it's been restored to the proper OEM configuration. And with that, that's the conclusion of this presentation. We've had a lot of interest in this particular announcement, so we ask that you submit questions in writing, at least from the public, so we can prepare a consolidated and accurate response set of Q&As for public release.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions, comments from the advisory group members? I see David Kusa with the Automotive Service Councils of California, ASCCA, has his hand raised. Dave, why don't you start us off?
Thank you, Pat. So Paul, couple questions. So many of these aftermarket software overwrites are not necessarily overwrites. There's a handheld unit that downloads the OEM software and then uploads the hot rod software. And then, before you get your car smogged, you just reverse that procedure. Will that show in the test? Will the test be able to see if that type of operation has happened?
If the vehicle doesn't match the expected configuration showing in the OBD data, it'll fail for modified software.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm wondering if those change it at all. I'll have to find out that myself then. Okay, and then another question. Again, and I guess it's gonna be the same answer, right? A lot of times, just a tire and wheel package is changed, and which affects the speedometer. So these little units can go in and update the tire size so the speedometer is accurate. Again, I guess if it doesn't match, then it would fail. If it matches, then nobody cares, right?
That's correct.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dave. Ruben Parra with the California Automotive Teachers.
Hello. I just want to ask Paul if I assume that the school software will be updated along with the school's software will also be updated along with the automotive repair shops.
Yes, that's correct. The schools have a BarOS set up in our sandbox.
Okay.
It's a mirror image of what the stations use.
Okay.
And when this change is applied July 19th, it'll be applied for the school use as well. Correct.
Okay. Just making sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for asking the question. That's a good question. All right, Rick Escalambre, also representing California Automotive Teachers.
Yeah, Paul, I have a question. I see how the statement's worded. How will the dealerships be notified that this is their responsibility? Because that's one of the things that's lacked in the past is dealerships understanding what their requirements are. They're usually the end user to get. I mean, the entity that gets this and needs to deal with these vehicles showing up there. So how will they be informed?
So our referee will work with the dealership and the consumer to provide specific direction as to what we require in that area.
Okay. And one other thing, it said it must go to a license. How are you going to verify that it went to the one statement said it had to must go to a licensed station for the software. How are you going to verify that?
That's just our regulation requirement. We don't follow the vehicles around and ensure where they are actually repaired.
Okay, yeah, because I see that you must take your vehicle to a licensed repair facility as a pretty specific statement. So that's why I'm wondering, there's going to be no way to verify that.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I'll also add that we've had discussions with the New Car Dealers Association with conversations even with specific dealerships that were brought to our attention with Alicia Reinhardt and Anthony. And if there's communications that we can do to their members, we certainly stand ready to assist them if we haven't done so already to get the word out.
Pat, the reason I bring that up is training a lot of the dealer techs in the update classes. In many cases, sometimes they're the least informed when it comes to this. And I've helped a number of them because they were unaware of this, even in their own dealership prior to this. So that's why I'm talking about, and this is why I worked with Anthony on an article, trying to get the dealerships more informed on what's going on. If they are the ones going to get dropped on their laps, in many cases, not all cases. But I just think that better communications with the dealerships could be a big help to the consumer and to the dealership.
Point well taken. Good observations, and thank you for working with Anthony to get a story developed for the dealers.
I personally am happy to see this officially out there.
Thank you, Rick. Ruben or Dave, did you have any additional comments? See the hand still raised.
I have another question. Go ahead and let Ruben go.
I had mine up from prior. I'm good. Thank you.
All right, Dave,
Paul, can you? Thanks, Pat. Paul, can you go back one slide?
Sure, no problem.
Oh, I see. Okay, so okay, now I understand. I missed that first part. Okay, so if it fails for smog and the vehicle owner says, "Hey, I've done nothing to this car. I've owned it since new. It should pass." Then it requires an OEM verification. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
All right, Anthony Bento with the California New Car Dealers Association. Thank you very much, Anthony, for joining in on the conversation.
Of course, and thank you for having me. And I just want to reiterate our willingness and excitement about acting as a conduit to our members and in educating them about these important issues. I appreciate all the help that Rick has provided in developing the article that we published, and happy to discuss offline with you, Pat, or anyone from your team about any future educational endeavors. I know that we're separately working, of course, on a webinar to educate our members about key aspects of bar compliance, and very much appreciate you and your team's efforts on that. I think it's going to be a great resource, and I really think that these are, again, using us as a conduit to our members and educating them is something that we're very interested in continuing to do, and supporting all of your efforts. So thank you again, and happy to speak now or offline with anyone about that issue.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate the comments. Rick, did you have anything else to add or say? Your hand is still raised. Okay. And I believe we can now open it up for public comment. Moderator, would you please open it up for members of the public to be able to ask a question or comment on this presentation?
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the Bureau, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please click that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, this is the moderator. It looks like we do have a couple individuals who have requested public comment. I'll go in the order that comments were received. Our first individual who has requested public comment is identified as Rob S. Rob, I will request to unmute your microphone. Please click OK when WebEx prompts you.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Wonderful. I have two questions. The first is if an OEM pushes an over-the-air update that changes the CVN or the CAL ID, how's that going to be addressed to prevent a failure?
So the BAR's profiles, the data we're using to check the vehicles against, we update frequently. If for some reason we're out of sync with that, that would be caught through the referee process, and then we would make a correction to those profiles going forward.
So it's possible that if an automaker that has a gasoline or diesel-powered vehicle pushes an over-the-air update, that a number of those vehicles would fail if the CVN or the CAL ID changes until that database is updated. Is that correct?
Very remotely, I would say, because we look at a large statistical sample of vehicles. So you would have to catch like the first vehicle updated or something to that effect. But
so I guess my concern about that is if there's a large number of vehicles that are being updated over the air, and that batch is pushed out very quickly, and you see a frequent number of these vehicles coming in for inspection in a given period of time, isn't it more than likely that a number of the vehicles would attempt to pass through and fail? Or I guess I'm just not seeing the provision that's there to prevent over-the-air updates and changes to those CAL IDs from kind of preventing or putting a hamper on legitimate inspections failing.
right. The other part I should add that I haven't mentioned is we get source data through the OEMs through Air Resources Board to compare against the vehicles against when they're inspected. So we'll have the latest, greatest from that as well to compare to. So it shouldn't be in a gap.
Okay, so the automakers are actually providing that information to you before release.
Correct.
Okay, understood. My second part to that question is any of the data that's being collected being monetized in any way, being sold through the states, or whether that be telematics or just general information collected during the bar OIS process?
No. No, we have a generic data extract. It's just like numbers of inspections, that kind of information. The specific information is not shared.
Okay, perfect. And about how long would you say that CBAR has been preparing for this? How long has it been collecting data in anticipation of this?
We've been collecting the data since bar OIS was implemented back in 2015. And then we've also been collecting the OEM source data through California Air Resources Board for many months as well.
Okay, excellent. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, I would also add that because this is a biennial program, anything that's pushed out by the OEMs that for some reason we weren't aware of wouldn't be an onslaught of vehicles all of a sudden impacted by the smog program. It would probably trickle in, and we'd get, as you observed, notification through the referee challenge process, if you will. Obviously, there's 24 months in that 2-year biennial cycle for smog inspection for the smog check program that allows us to see any impacts gradually over time, potentially. And as you said, we're already getting some of that source data from the manufacturers. So I wouldn't expect this to be some huge impact to a large group of vehicles as a result of any change that somehow slipped through the cracks of our being notified.
This is the moderator. We'll move on to our next individual who has requested public comment. Individual identified as Christian Robinson. Christian, I will request to unmute your microphone. Please click OK when WebEx prompts you to unmute. All right, Christian, you are unmuted. This is the moderator. Christian, if you are speaking, it appears we're unable to hear you. What you may want to try doing is connecting your phone's audio by going up to audio and video up at the top of your WebEx screen and select switch audio, and then follow the prompts on how to connect your phone's audio. We will circle back with you once that gets fixed. So in the meantime, we'll move on to our next individual who has requested public comment. Individual identified as Oscar. And Oscar, I will request to unmute your microphone. Please click OK when WebEx prompts you to unmute. This is the moderator. Oscar, if you would like to make a public comment, please click OK when WebEx prompts you to unmute. I'll request again.
Not hearing anything.
Yeah, this is the moderator. Unfortunately, it looks like Oscar's not unmuting his microphone. He did type a question into the Q&A. I can go ahead and read that off if you'd like me to.
Yeah, that's fine. That
He
works.
wrote, he wrote, should signs be made for this type of questions? And also, should a different upload be modified for modified software be implemented?
I'm not sure I understand the first question. Should signs be made? Is he referring to a station smog check sign?
There's no other context, unfortunately. I do not know.
So this check is just part of the routine BarOS inspection. It's an automatic check that looks at the OBD data from the vehicle. So it won't add any time to the inspection or cause the inspector to make any extra efforts. So with respect to changing pricing or smog check signs, I don't see any need for that. And do you mind rereading the second question?
Yes, so the second question says, should a different upload for modified software be implemented?
I'm not sure I understand that one either. So just to reiterate how the modified software check works, during the BarOS inspection, when the OBD data is collected, it's compared against a set of expected data for that vehicle. And if the data doesn't match, the vehicle will fail for modified software. So that's the upload as I understand it, where the data is uploaded from the vehicle and compared to that result.
All right, and this is the moderator, and it appears our previous commenter, Christian Robinson's microphone is not working, so I will read off their comment. And they wrote, will the database BAR is using to determine pass-fail rate be publicly available?
No, that was similar to the previous question. We're not sharing that information collected during this part of the inspection. And I can expand on that. The reason for that is due to the quickly evolving nature of fraudulent devices used during inspection or tuning packages. Providing that data would provide an advantage to change that equipment faster. Okay.
All right, and then we have one more person who has requested public comment, individual identified as Garrett Torgensen. Garrett, I will request to unmute your microphone. Please click OK when WebEx prompts you to unmute. And Garrett, you are now unmuted.
You're now a member of the public, Garrett. Welcome.
That's right. So I just wanted to, I'm with Bar Engineering, and I wanted to just kind of drive home that we've spent a fair amount of resources ensuring that we're not going to be falsely identifying vehicles that are going to be failed for this portion of the inspection. And so, questions came up. I know Dave, I think sorry, did you say something? Oh, nope. So Dave asked a question about, for instance, tire sizes. Will tire sizes cause vehicles to fail this portion? No, they will not. If dealerships or OEM equipment, if the factories come out with new calibrations, when there's a period of time when they're the first vehicles out there, are they going to get identified on this? No, they will not. So we've really made a lot of effort to, as we say, keep the dolphins out of the tuna net. And so I think the vehicles that, we have processes set up. Should one of these vehicles end up improperly failed, we have processes set up to address those. But really, we think, by and large, the vehicles that fail this are going to be modified vehicles needing repairs. So that, I think sometimes people are concerned that, we haven't considered these various alternatives. We spend a lot of time in the data ensuring that we're not doing damage with this inspection. And I just want to drive that home.
Thank you, Garrett. Any other public comments, moderator?
We do have one more individuals requested public comment, although they requested not to unmute their microphone. So I'll just read off the comment. The comment says, how many cars are subjected to bar OIS each day?
I don't know the latest percentage. Roughly 80% of the vehicles subject to smog check receive the bar OIS inspection.
All right. It looks like they clarified. It says, sorry, how many cars, as in 15,000, 50,000, etc.
So if we inspect approximately 30,000 vehicles per month, you can take 80% of that number would be the bar OIS inspected vehicles.
Paul, say those numbers again. I thought we did 1 million inspections a month. I'm sorry, I lost you there.
Yeah, I believe we do about 33,000 a day.
Yeah,
Oh, you're doing a daily. I'm sorry.
I'm
I thought
sorry, I
you said
misspoke.
30,000 a month. I heard 30,000 a month. Maybe I misunderstood.
No, I misspoke.
Sorry.
Thanks, Pat.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right, and this is the moderator. It appears there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you very much, moderator.
All right.
I'll circle back with the bar advisory group members. I thought I saw a hand raised again. Let me just make sure it wasn't a holdover from the last time around. Nope, looks like we're clear there. All right, well, thank you very much, everyone, for the comments. Thank you, Paul, for the presentation. Look very much forward to the rollout on July 19th next week, and we'll monitor and report back if there's any issues we hadn't foreseen. But I think, as Paul mentioned, we've been studying this for some time, and we feel a pretty good handle on what we've done to in preparation for rolling this out to make sure that all the safeguards are in place and assurances that this will go smoothly. Thank you very much. We'll move to Paul's second presentation on the agenda. Smog check equipment security and fraud prevention, an update that Paul's going to give us on that. I think that's probably closely aligned with the regulation package that was addressed in the update that Holly O'Connor gave a little earlier in the agenda. Here to tell us a little bit more in detail about what we're doing with that kind of the behind the scenes technical aspects of that regulation package is Paul again.
Great, thank you, Pat. So smog check equipment security and fraud prevention. So Holly provided most of the summary of what's in the regulation package. Just looking at this first slide, the only thing I can add there really is that it also requires inspectors enroll with BAR. And what that means is that it'd be required to meet with BAR in the beginning and verify their ID and allow BAR to collect those initial biometric scans. And those would be used as comparison when the biometric is used with the BAR OBD inspection system at a later date. Just quickly to cover these, the biometric use would replace the password for BAR OIS and BAR 97. It would permit BAR access to view and record inspection information. That's the web camera portion. It would also not allow a station to have a device capable of simulating or manipulating specific OBD data during inspection in the testing area. That's an OBD simulator, basically. And lastly, provides BAR the authority to access stations anytime inspections or repairs are performed, including outside normal business hours. So regulation status, correction to this first bullet, as Pat and Holly said earlier, it's with our agency for approval right now. And then once BAR and DCA and agency have approved and the regulation package moves on to the future steps, we can provide more firm, more exact implementation dates. So what I'll provide here going forward is estimated milestone dates. So some technical changes we've been making moving toward or preparing for biometric use. So the first is a BAR-OIS update. It went to our beta stations just this morning. And this particular update adds a second password entry at the end of the inspection. So what this does is it helps protect the license inspectors from any unlicensed persons completing the inspections. And when biometric use comes into play in the future, that scan will replace the password entry, making that more convenient. And I should also add, not written on this slide, this particular update may require many BAR-OIS users reset their password. So as a warning, and we'll include this in BAR blast language before this release goes to all stations on July 26th. But just as a warning, remember, make sure you have access to your BAR-OIS email so that if we asked you to do a password reset, that you're able to go to your email and get the token that's generated during that password reset process. We're looking at alternatives to resetting password due dates. In other words, extending some time so that all these users don't have to do it on the same day or at the same time. But we'll provide that information in the ET blast when this release goes out in a couple weeks. So with that, the next technical update is the February BAR-OIS update. So this is what we're calling the biometric update, when the devices can be used with the BAR-OIS system. Also in this update, it will increase the BAR-OIS password to 15 characters. And this is required by California Department of Technology increased security standard where all state entities have to do a minimum 15 character password length. And again, when biometric use, it would make this easier because it will replace the password entry. So this is just a screen showing how the second password entry would be required at the end of an inspection. Very similar to what everybody's doing now at the beginning of the inspection. So some milestone dates. So hopefully in the next October BAG meeting, we'll be able to do a demonstration and kick off the voluntary enrollment where inspectors can meet with BAR, verify identity, and we can collect the initial biometric scans. We'll show how that process works and the details, how to meet with BAR. And then following that October BAG meeting will be a period when inspectors can voluntarily enroll. We're calling early bird enrollment. They can enroll so that they're in a good position to start using biometric as soon as the equipment's available and the BAR-OIS software has been updated. So then in January, BAG meeting, we hope to demonstrate the BAR-OIS software change itself and how the biometric works with the BAR-OIS. And at the same time in January, we would announce the equipment being available from the biometric resellers. And again, the caveat at the bottom here is that these dates are subject to change based on regulation process. And continue with milestones is the February update to the BAR OIS. That's where the biometric use will be allowed. It'll be optional use at that point. So if someone is enrolled with BAR and they have their equipment plugged in, ready to go, they can begin using it at that point. Following February will be a period of time, April through September. And this is the period when it becomes greater interest and more important to enroll, prepare for biometric use, because at the conclusion of this period, it could be October, it could be July 2022 when the regulations are adopted. BAR will communicate when biometric use is mandatory. So it'll be more important to enroll with BAR, get your equipment, and begin using it. During this rollout period, you'll be able to use password or biometric to aid with the learning curve. But it's once we've communicated the date when it's mandatory, biometric will be the only option. And with that, we'll take questions.
All right, thank you very much, Paul, for getting into the details of the rollout or the planned rollout next year for this important update that's going through the regulatory process right now. Dave Kusa, I saw your hand up first, so I'll recognize you as having the first question related to this topic. Dave Kusa with the Automotive Service Councils of California, or ASCCA.
Thank you, Pat. Thanks, Paul. I know we covered this in the past, but just to reiterate, any anticipated costs that you know of? I know most of the stuff's off the shelf, right? Is anything BAR mandated? And if so, what would that be?
Sure, that's a fair question. And once the regulations are with OAL, those materials will be published on our website. But to answer your question, the biometric devices are about $400. One would be required for the BAR OS, one for the BAR 97. And the webcam, when we implement that at some point in the future, the webcam meeting those performance specifications identified in the updated Smog Check manual would be about $100 webcam to meet that requirement.
Cool, and that's off the shelf type stuff, Amazon, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the biometric devices, there'll be a few different resellers. So the vendors that currently sell the inspection equipment, we may have an online vendor as well that people can go to. But the webcams are purely off the shelf.
Okay, so the hardware for and the software for the biometric will there be BAR specifications and vendors specifically for that? Such as
Sure.
like the dad, right? I can't go just buy I buy from a particular vendor.
Yeah, I understand. So the biometric device, there'll be a specific make and model number required, and that make and model number information is in the Smog Check manual, in the required equipment table in the back of the manual. And the requirements for the camera, its resolution, focal length, all those type of camera requirements, they're listed in that equipment table as well. So you'll know what performance the camera has to meet. So you don't buy the cheapest camera. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, I saw Rick Escalambre with the California Automotive Teachers next, and then we'll go to Mr. Gallo.
Paul, how's that going to work for the training institutions? I know they're going to have it. How are they going to deal with the students and registering them that'll be in the machines?
So student use of biometric will be a future phase we'll have to work on and implement. Right now, you have to be a licensed inspector, meet with a BAR field rep in order to use it with the real Smog Check inspection.
Okay, so there'll be a time lag for schools down the road eventually then.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
That'll be a future phase of the implementation, right?
One per machine, correct?
One per machine, correct.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Rick. Let's go to Johan Gallo with the California Automotive Business Coalition, or CalABC, next.
Thanks, Pat. I think one of the concerns that members are having also is on security, especially in today's world of ransomware and hacking. And so what are the safeguards being put in place with not only the OIS software, but also the communications over the internet with the various stations?
So that's a bigger question than biometric. You're really asking about the design and architecture of the bar OS itself. The bar OBD inspection system, it's a web-based software application. It has a secure internet connection, just like connection to your banking site. And we have security people on staff, both the bar and with our contractor, that make sure we have the latest and greatest security updates in that architecture. Hopefully I'd answer your question enough.
Yeah, again, it's just a growing concern. We see it in businesses every day being taken over, and it is a concern, no different than our members that are running POS systems and collecting all customer information and making sure it's safeguarded.
Yeah, we have state security mandates, and there's contractual requirements for Encore Consulting LLC, our VID contractor. And then we have security personnel in our technology services branch as well that all work together and collaborate to make sure we're meeting the California Department of Technology security standards and requirements for that whole system.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Ruben Parra with the California Automotive Teachers.
Hi, just a quick follow-up on Mr. Escalambra's question. So how about instructors? Instructors at certified institutions, will we be allowed to demonstrate and or use the biometric feature early on? So we can show the students how that's done, or will all schools and instructors be allowed at the same time?
Well, you have to actually enroll with BAR to use it. We're not planning to enroll schools and instructors in the beginning. That'll be a future phase.
Okay.
There will be the BAR OIS online help. That's part of the BAR OIS application. It's also available on our website. There'll be a few new screens in that online help that'll serve as training materials for you.
Okay.
And
Possibly
then,
a training
I'm sorry?
Possibly a training module as other, maybe a training module added to that, or?
Yeah, our online help will have additional pages in there showing the screens and how the OIS works. And then I'll do some demonstrations in a future bag meeting to show how the OIS software works. And that would be good training material.
Okay. Thank you.
Other comments or questions from the advisory group? Seeing none, we'll move to opening it up for public comment. Moderator, would you please open it up for members of the public to be able to weigh in on this presentation?
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the Bureau, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, and it does look like we have one individual who has requested public comment, individual identified as Jonathan Summers. Jonathan, I will request to unmute your microphone. Please click OK when WebEx prompts you to unmute.
Hello, Paul. A few moments ago, you said that the equipment requirements is located in the required equipment in the smog check manual. The smog check manual hasn't been updated since 2017. I just checked both manuals, and there's no equipment required in either manual.
Sure, I can address that. So What I'm speaking about is a draft smog check manual with a 2021 date on it, and it's still part of the draft regulations. So in a couple of months, when those regulations go to the Office of Administrative Law, BAR will publish all those materials on our website under the regulatory actions part of our website, and you'll have access to that proposed manual then, and then you can see what I'm talking about.
Fantastic. If a station want to go ahead and pre-purchase this equipment prior to legislation, is there availability of type of equipment, required equipment, anywhere located?
So in January, we'll put information out on our public website, the vendors, the resellers that have the equipment available for purchase, and it'll also include the specific required make and model number of device that match the smog check manual.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator, and it appears there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
All right, I'm looking to see if any additional comments from the BAR Advisory Group. Ruben, your hand is raised. Is that from the previous comment?
I'm sorry, I'll get this right eventually.
No worries. Just want to make sure we got you covered, all of your questions and comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, it looks like we can close this agenda item out. Thank you very much, Paul. Very good job with both the presentations. Look forward to seeing you probably down the road a bit with one of our next BAR Advisory Group meetings to be able to give an update on where we are on both of these items, actually.
All right, goodbye.
Thank you. Have a good day. All right. One of the things I wanted to do in light of AB 471, which envisions an informal hearing process for any citation program, which is the subject of our regulatory workshop that we're going to be discussing this afternoon at 2 p.m., is to give a sample of, not a sample, kind of an update on some of the informal hearing processes that are already in place for two of our programs. And this is agenda item number 6, where we have an informal hearing process that's built into our statutes in the Health and Safety Code for the STAR certification program. And we also have an informal hearing process for citations. As I previously mentioned, we currently only issue citations for smog check violations as it relates to missing, modified, and disconnected equipment, vehicles that are taken into shops to potentially identify wrong, inappropriate inspections. We'll issue citations when the inspections aren't compliant with our statutes and regulations. And then we also issue citations for our unlicensed or unregistered shops out there who are not licensed or registered with us. So those are the two areas I wanted to address. That's agenda item number 6 and number 8. And we'll start with the STAR program informal hearing process. And here to talk about it, we had been putting this on the agenda for the last couple of meetings, and then I had to remove it just because the agendas were getting so big. And we also wanted to get a full fiscal year worth of data to present. So with the fiscal year just having closed on June 30th, the most recent one, we are now able to give you a more complete source of data or results from the last year. So here to give us an update on the STAR informal hearing process is the person who is my designee, as allowed for in statute, a designee to hear those matters before they are formally appealed potentially, and an administrative hearing is conducted. We allow for BAR to review those matters and potentially avoid having to go through the formal hearing process with a judge. So here to do that presentation is Matthew Gibson from our Enforcement Operations Branch. Thank you, Matthew, for joining us, and welcome.
Thank you, Pat. And as you said, I'm Matthew Gibson. I'm a program manager in the Enforcement Operations Branch. And as you also said, I'm the Chief's designee to hear informal STAR invalidation appeals. And I'll be presenting about changes that we've made over the last year to the STAR program informal hearing process. The PowerPoint is it's 18 slides long, which is a little long for a bag presentation, but I'll try to move through them as quickly as I can. So the STAR program, which replaced BAR's Gold Shield program, was developed in response to Assembly Bill 2289 and required inspection-based performance standards for smog check stations. It is a voluntary certification program for stations that meet higher performance standards established in BAR regulations, and STAR certification by BAR is required to inspect, certify, directed, and gross polluting vehicles. Looking at station criteria, California Code of Regulations section 3392.2.1 lists the required services of STAR stations and equipment required to perform those services. And those services include, certification of previously identified gross polluting vehicles, the ability to perform OIS or OBD-based inspections, and EIS or BAR 97 inspections. California Code of Regulations section 3392.3.1 sets the eligibility or performance standards for STAR certification, which includes short-term measures, which measures test deviations and other performance measures on a monthly and quarterly basis, follow-up pass rate, or FPR, which is a long-term performance measure that focuses on individual technicians and stations on a semi-annual basis, and citation and disciplinary history. So causes for invalidation. So California Code of Regulation 3392.5.1 lists the cause for invalidations of a STAR certification, which is failure to meet a short-term measure standard for 2 consecutive quarters, a technician or station that does not meet the FPR standard, not having operational equipment necessary to perform the required services, or a smog check citation or disciplinary action that has become effective. The informal hearing process under California Code of Regulations section 3392.6.1 details the requirements for the informal hearing process, that a station has 5 days after receiving an invalidation letter to request an informal hearing. The chief or designee has 10 days to conduct the informal hearing after receiving the request. The station will be notified of the decision 10 days after close of the informal hearing, and the station may request a formal administrative hearing to contest the informal decision. And by that, I mean they can formally appeal, or it's called a formal appeal. And I use that term later so that you understand what we're talking about. California Code of Regulations 3392.6.1 states the Bureau shall notify the STAR certified station or representative of the time and place of the hearing. The hearing shall be limited in scope to the time period, facts, and allegations specified in the notice prepared by the Bureau. Historically, STAR invalidations were upheld and modified to a temporary invalidation, or they were overturned. And upheld and modified to a temporary invalidation, I believe, was used intermittently to address specific invalidations, but became more commonly used when we made a change in spring of 2019 to how we handled invalidations due to a citation that became effective, which I'll go into greater detail about in a moment. So an informal hearing consists of a review of written arguments and supporting evidence provided by the licensee and STAR report card criteria. And the STAR report card that we use for the informal hearing is the same one that anyone can see on BAR's website. The chief or designee may contact the licensee if necessary to obtain clarification regarding the licensee's written arguments or to review and discuss the cause of the invalidation. In looking at 2019 formal and hearing statistics, and by 2019, I'm talking about a calendar year versus a fiscal year, so 2019, there's 1,274 invalidation letters sent to STAR certified stations. BAR received 962 requests for an informal hearing, or 76%. Informal hearings resulted in 670 invalidations being upheld, or about 70%. 292 invalidations being overturned, or 30%. And of the 670 invalidations that were upheld, 433 requested a formal hearing, or 65%. In looking at 2019 informal hearing statistics specifically for citations, 264 invalidation letters were sent to STAR certified stations for a citation that became effective. BAR received 213 requests for an informal hearing related to a citation that became effective, 81%. And 200 of those invalidations were upheld in the informal process, 94%. In spring of 2019, BAR began offering a 30-day temporary STAR invalidation. And 98 of the 156 licensees offered a temporary invalidation accepted the offer and did not formally appeal, so 63%. So this resulted in only 35% of the citation invalidations upheld being formally appealed, which was down from 53% in 2018. Other invalidation causes with high percentage of formal appeals were disciplinary actions and follow-up pass rate. Both of those had 83% of the invalidations upheld, later appealed formally. In short-term measures, 82% of the invalidations upheld were later formally appealed. So given the high percentage of formal appeals for those causes, it seems that STAR informal hearings were neither alleviating BAR administrative filings nor helping to bring STAR stations into compliance with STAR requirements. Based upon the success of the temporary STAR invalidation for citations, BAR began testing a new approach in May of 2020, and it's correction versus consequence. And what I mean by correction versus consequence is that we wanted to move to an approach that would encourage stations to take an active role in monitoring their station's performance measures. And when they corrected the cause of an invalidation, we would restore or reinstate their STAR privileges without reapplication. So since May of 2020, when a STAR invalidation for short-term measures, FPR, or equipment is upheld following an informal hearing, the licensee receives a modified decision. The modified decision suspends the station's STAR certification until the licensee corrects the condition for which they were invalidated. A STAR certification reinstatement request form is provided to the station owner when they receive the invalidation letter, which can be, when they receive the informal decision letter, which can be completed and submitted to BAR licensing when the cause is corrected. For fiscal year 2021, BAR reinstated 34 stations with FPR invalidations and 8 stations with short-term measure invalidations. In reviewing the stats for fiscal year 2021, I found an additional 52 stations that formally appealed FPR invalidations that could have reinstated, but they didn't. And I also found an additional 33 stations that formally appealed short-term measure invalidations that could have reinstated, but didn't. So, I can flip the slide. To facilitate this approach, there we go. This new approach, BAR made several changes. The hearing decision letter was changed to direct stations to STAR report card on BAR's website, provides direction on when and how to use this STAR certification reinstatement request form. BAR's website was changed to locate a link to the STAR report card in the quick links on the homepage, and star.reinstatement@dca.ca.gov email account was created for BAR to receive the reinstatement forms in addition to fax. In looking at the fiscal year 2021 informal hearing statistics for short-term measure and FPR, 43% of the invalidations for short-term measures that were appealed informally later were formally appealed. And for follow-up pass rate, 58% of the invalidations that were appealed informally were then later formally appealed. Had those, and I mentioned those stations that could have reinstated that didn't, and had they, so if those stations had reinstated, the formal appeal rate for short-term measures would have been 20% instead of 43%, and the formal appeal rate for follow-up pass rate or FPR would have been 48% instead of 50%. And there is a footnote because those percentages are not a direct comparison to the 2019 stats due to differences in the invalidation volume and informal evaluation criteria as part of the hearing process. In reviewing 2019 STAR invalidations for citations that became effective, BAR found that 69% of invalidations for stations that 69% of those invalidations were for stations that had not received a citation in the prior 3 years. 31% of the invalidations were for stations that had received at least 1 citation in the prior 3 years. So of the 69% of stations that had not received a citation prior to the cause of invalidation, only 8% of those had received a second citation. So it appears 92% of STAR stations that received a citation do not receive a second citation within 3 years. So based on that observation, in July of 2020, BAR began testing waiving one citation within the 3-year period as a cause for invalidation. When appropriate, the newly revised citation now includes the statement, "The citation will not be cause for invalidation of your station's STAR certification." In looking at the stats for fiscal year 2021, only 14% of the invalidations for citations that were informally appealed were then later appealed formally. So to be more effective and efficient addressing STAR invalidations for stations with disciplinary actions, BAR started working with the Attorney General's office to include STAR certification in settlement talks, but only after a settlement had been reached that achieves the greatest level of public protection, and any STAR certification suspension would be separate or served separately of any registration suspension. And that's my presentation.
All right, Matt, thank you very much for that presentation today. Let's see if we have any questions from the BAR Advisory Group. Not seeing any questions or hands raised. Let's open it up for public comment and maybe something will come up there. Moderator, could you please open it up for public comment?
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the Bureau, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, this is the moderator. Looks like we do have one request from individual identified as Jonathan Summers. One moment. All right, and Jonathan, I will request to unmute your microphone. Please click OK when WebEx prompts you to unmute.
Hello, Matthew. Jonathan Summers, California Smog and Automotive Institute. Hey, quick question. What is the criteria for STAR validation with regard to the FPR as well as the short-term measure?
Okay, well, the short-term measure has like lots of facets to it. And I would just direct you to the STAR report card on our website because I'm not going to remember all of them. But I will tell you that it's updated monthly on our website so that you can check your stations. Like
the report card refers to the FPR. I understand that. The short-term measure is not part of the report card.
It is. There's multiple tabs on the top so that you should be able to see short-term measures and for FPR. So you can, once you put your station's identifying information in, right, on the page, it'll come up with your station information, but on the top there's tabs. And one is like your station page, and the next one is, well, it could be FPR, but then one after that, you actually would select those tabs and you'll see more information about those measures.
That information is correct. My apology. Let me rephrase the question.
Okay.
STAR validation with regards to FPR, I believe is 0.4 or 0.3. I'm not sure, and that's what the question I was asking. The second question with regards to short-term measure, is it 2 deviations per quarter, or is it what is the criteria for invalidation for STAR on short-term measure?
Okay, so for FPR, what you have is it's 0.4. So we have 2 different criteria based on the situation. So it's 0.4 to get into a station. So if you're being added into a station or you're adding a technician to your station, their score would be at a minimum 0.4. After they're into your station, it's possible they would fluctuate, and we will drop that down to a stay-in score of 0.1. Does that answer your question about FPR?
So below 0.1, that's 90% that the station's doing everything incorrectly. That's at that point that the station will become STAR validated.
So I don't know if FPR really can be thought of in the way that you're saying it, only because it takes into account, and again, I'm not the expert on FPR. I didn't design FPR. I accept that it's a measure that exists and is applied to all technicians and stations throughout the state. But I believe it's on a longer time scale than you're thinking of, more like if you go back to when repairs, the last smog check performance was done on that vehicle in its last cycle. So If somebody gets a score at 0.1 or less than 0.1, then yes, you will have a cause for invalidation of the station.
Very good. Now, with regards to short term?
Short term, you asked me how many deviations do you have to have? I don't really remember right at the moment. Only because when I'm looking at it, I'm looking to see if you're passing or if you're failing. And so I know that there's like, they're grouped into two different sections. You can have, I believe, two types of deviations, but then there's also a set of performance measures, but you can only have one of those that exceeds the acceptable limit or some combination thereof. And I apologize, but I will tell you, I think that the page will explain it to you if you looked.
The reason for I was asking, I was just seeing if the laws have changed. The way the laws were in the past was 2 deviations per quarter. 2 quarters, you would become invalidated. That was the previous law, and I was just wondering if that law was updated.
I think
my apology. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think what we were talking about though, it had to do with the fact that so we evaluate short-term measures quarterly, although the information is on our website and it's updated monthly. If you fail short-term measures in 2 consecutive quarters, that itself is a cause for invalidation.
Okay.
I think that's what you're trying to say or ask.
Correct. So that law still states.
Yeah, that's still the way that it is.
Okay, very good. And the way it was taught several years back with STAR, I just want to verify that the laws have not changed. The FPR is 0 to 1.0, and 1.0 means that they're 100% confident that you're doing everything correctly. 0, they're 100% confident that you're doing everything incorrectly. And then the score is in between. That's the way we were taught in the past. Is that still the same?
Well, the score itself hasn't changed. It's a 0 to 1 scale. And if somebody is a 1, then I would say that, one, I've never seen it. But in addition to that, I think that it means that the vehicles that they tested in the vehicle's last emission cycle were retested and either passed or failed at exactly the expected rate. But again, I'm not going to be able to really talk about FPR other than to understand that we're talking about a longer time scale. And although I will say that a technician who does not do a good job certifying cars will end up with a low FPR, I don't know if I would clarify it the way that you're talking about related to competence.
Okay, very good. So the criteria for STAR validation has not changed. The laws still are in place.
Yes, the regulations. And although I will say there is a new regulation package that's Holly talked about at the beginning of BAG, all my presentation is on the stuff that I'm working with right now, which are the current regs, and no, they haven't changed.
Very good. Thank you, Matthew. No more questions.
All right.
Other comments?
Yeah. Oh, this is the moderator. Appears there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right.
Any comments from the bar advisory group? Scroll here. Nope, I do not see any other comments from at all from the bar advisory group members. Let you off the hook easy, Matt, this time, but be prepared for this afternoon's workshop.
Well, I must have just done a really good job explaining it. Obviously.
You did, absolutely.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, we'll move to agenda item number 7. And here to give us a presentation on our annual smog check performance reports. There's 2 of them, one that's due to the California legislature and one that must be publicized by us, which we use this forum to do so. That's spelled out in the Health and Safety Code, our annual smog check performance report, as well as an annual report due to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency that we work with the California Air Resources Board on. So here to give us an update on those 2 reporting efforts is Jonathan G., who is in our bar engineering and research branch. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Pat. I'm Jonathan G. I'm the supervisor over the program evaluation and referee unit in engineering and research branch of BAR. We have two annual reporting requirements. The first is the Smog Check Performance Report, as required by the California Health and Safety Code, Section 44024.5b. Historically, presents analysis of roadside inspection program failure rates. The 2021 Smog Check Performance Report also included an analysis of roadside sensing data, or RSD. We also had an independent review of the 2020 Smog Check Performance Report by St. Malo Solutions. And this year's report, as well as previous reports, are available at www.bar.ca.gov resources. We also have a second report, the United States Environmental Protection Agency, or US EPA report, is required by all IM programs in the country, and this is Rule 51.366. That covers analysis of smog check failure rates, number of retests, vehicles not certified after initial failure, and many other metrics. The California Air Resources Board, or CARB, submits this US EPA report for us, and that is due July 31st of 2021. Just a quick note about the 2021 Smog Check Performance Report. Historically, BAR has almost always used and relied on data from the roadside inspection program to evaluate the smog check performance for the report. This year, of course, we had COVID-19, and roadside inspections were suspended in March of 2020. The analysis for this year's report were supplemented with RSD data collected in the Los Angeles area from November 2020 to March 2021. While the RSD data provided supportive information for this year's report, RSD is not a replacement for roadside inspection program data, as RSD data is not directly correlated with the inspections conducted in our overall smog check program. And already we do have the new, the roadside testing has continued for this year. So we are collecting roadside data as normal again. So here are our findings for the Smog Check Performance Report for this year. The analysis of Q1 2019 to 2020 roadside data, November 2020 to March 2021 RSD data, Smog Check inspection data, and related information leads BAR to conclude that model years 2000 to 2006 OIS tested vehicles failed at an average rate of 21% in Q1 of 2019 to 2020 using the roadside sample, which is the same failure rate found in Q1 of 2018 to 2019 roadside data. Model year 1990 to 1999 tailpipe tested vehicles failed for emissions at an average rate of 18% for Q1 2019 to 2020 in their roadside sample, compared to 17% in the Q1 of 2018 to 2019 roadside samples. BAR enforcement activities over the last 5 years are reflected in the Los Angeles RSD data. Nitric oxide emissions rates of vehicles that were certified at stations whose licenses had been revoked were over 2 times the NO emissions rates for stations that had good standing licenses. If all smog check stations operated similarly to high performing stations, both BAR and CARB staff estimate smog check could have reduced reactive organic compounds and oxides of nitrogen. Those emissions could both have been reduced by 20 to 40 tons per day. So station performance remains important. Station performance as measured by the follow-up pass rate, or FPR, continues to be a very strong indicator of in-use vehicle emissions performance. This graph shows how the FPR relates to the pass rate of vehicles, or fail rate. So we have the blue is model years of 1990 to 1999, and the orange bars are model years of 2000 to 2006. So we have the FPR on the x-axis, and we then have the roadside failure rate on the y-axis. So you can see with the FPR of greater than 0.9, for those stations, they have a failure rate in the area of 7% to 11%. If you have a median FPR rate, so stations that have a FPR of 0.1 to 0.9, you'll have a failure rate around 16% to 19%. And for very low performing stations with FPRs below 0.1, you'll have a failure rate as high as 32 to 37%. So a little bit about bar enforcement activities. From 2016 to 2020, bar filed 1,083 data-only cases with the Attorney General's office, resulting in 912 license revocations and 192 suspensions or probations. During 2020, 3,600 vehicles had their certificates blocked because of potential fraud and were sent to the referee network for inspection. Less than half of those had received a smog check certificate as of May 2021. In February 2020, BAR announced administrative disciplinary action against 9 smog check stations charged with clean gassing. As of May 2021, none of these stations or technicians involved in clean gassing are permitted to perform tailpipe smog check inspections. Moving forward, BAR will continue to vigorously pursue and prosecute fraud in the smog check program. Enforcement actions are observed in the emissions of in-use vehicle fleet. Nitric oxide emissions of vehicles certified as stations whose licenses had been revoked are over 2 times the NO emissions rates of stations with licenses in good standing. This diagram shows that data. So on the x-axis, we have the model year of vehicle, and on the y-axis, we have the RSD NO emissions in grams of NO per kilogram of fuel burned. So blue is licenses in good standing. So these stations are good standing licenses, and the red dotted line is stations that tested the vehicles that have subsequently had revoked licenses. So the blue line is considerably lower until you get way up into the newer models. But you can see in the early 90s, it's almost twice the emissions. So having good standing license and having good FPR do make a difference. The US EPA report. This report is a compilation of statistics on the smog check program, required to be submitted to the US EPA every year. Every other year, the report also includes a summary of changes in program design, procedures, regulations, etc. This year's report included information in 3 sections. Firstly, changes to improve the effectiveness of the program. Second, fraud detection and prevention efforts. And thirdly, the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic had on smog check operations during calendar year 2020. Much of the above information has already been shared with the BAG and is therefore not repeated here. At the request of the US EPA, this year's report also included an assessment of failed vehicles without a final smog check certificate or outcome. Failing vehicles without a final smog check certification for calendar year 2018. Of the 11.5 million initial tests in calendar year 2018, there were 1.1 million failures. 141,250 of those failures had not received a final certificate after 2 years or more. Evaluation of Department of Motor Vehicles, or DMV, and smog check data revealed most were retired, on plan non-operation, PNO, or operated on expired tags. Very few were currently registered. So this pie chart just kind of gives a visual representation. You can see half of those vehicles roughly were identified as retired. The green is showing likely retired, just over a quarter. And then we have the orange, those are planned non-operation. The gray is not registered currently. Yellow is currently registered, so somehow they got registered without a smog check. And then the blue is out of state registered. So that concludes my presentation. If you have any written comments or questions, this is my contact information. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for the presentation. Any questions, comments from the Bar Advisory Group? Seeing none, we'll ask the moderator to open up the public comment dialogue.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the Bureau, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, seeing none, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you very much, moderator. Need to see if we got any things. No, I do not see anything from the Bar Advisory Group members, so we'll close this agenda item out. Thank you, John, for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Pat.
All right, agenda item number 8. As I said, back on agenda item number 6, we wanted to give a presentation about our other informal conference or informal hearing process that is currently provided for citations that are issued under the Smog Check program for Smog Check violations, as well as unlicensed or unregistered activity, with the potential to add another sort of informal process with a 3-member panel as envisioned by AB 471 if that legislation is to go through. So I wanted to give everybody an update on some of the changes we made to our informal hearing process, as well as our overall citation process with respect to the service of process and appeals relating to those citations. So here to give a presentation is my designee. Those informal hearings, much like with the STAR program, can either be conducted by the bar chief or his or her designee, and I have Greg Pearson currently assigned to perform this duty. Thank you, Greg, for joining us, and welcome.
Thank you, Pat. Good morning, everyone. I'm Greg Pearson with BAR's Field Operations and Enforcement Division, and as Pat said, I'm the designee to hear the informal citation appeals. My presentation today will be on citation service and appeal processes. And to give a little background, BAR currently issues citations for violations of the Health and Safety Code, primarily for the Smog Check program. Typically 44012 for the station and 44032 for the technician. BAR also issues citations for violations of Business Professions Code 9884.6A, and that's for unlicensed activity. Now, Smog Check citation appeals, the Health and Safety Code section 44051 allows licensees to informally appeal a Smog Check citation. It allows the bar chief or designee to affirm, modify, or dismiss the citation. It sets timeframes for holding an informal citation conference and providing the licensee with a decision. And it also allows licensees to formally appeal before an administrative law judge the informal citation conference decision. Unlicensed activity citation appeals. California Code of Regulations, section 3394.45, allows licensees to informally appeal a citation for unlicensed activity by requesting an informal conference within 10 days after the service of the citation. It allows the bar chief or designee to affirm, modify, or dismiss the citation. It also sets timeframes for holding the informal conference and providing the licensee with a decision and a reissued citation if the citation was modified within 15 days. Finally, it allows licensees to formally appeal within 10 days of the receipt of the informal conference decision. Following a review of BAR citation service and informal citation conference processes, BAR determined that the process for serving citations must be uniform throughout the state, and that all informal conferences should be held with facility and/or technician telephonically or in person. Now, to meet some of those requirements, BAR, starting July 1st, 2020, to improve statewide consistency, made changes to the service of the Smog Check citations and to the informal citation conference process. BAR's Enforcement Operation Branch now serves all Smog Check citations by mail statewide, as well as all informal citation conferences are now conducted telephonically or in person at BAR headquarters with the chief or designee. So implementing the modifications for those changes, to accommodate the service of these citations by mail, the citation documents have changed in the following ways. The citation is now a 2-page document that includes not only the citation amount, identified violations, and specifics of how the violations occurred, but also notification about the right to contest the citation. Additionally, the licensee will receive a newly revised payment of fine remittance form and a newly revised request to contest the citation form. The citation service conference form provided during the citation conference was eliminated and is no longer needed under this new process. To accommodate the in-person telephonic informal citation conference process, the following changes were made. The elimination of the important notice form, which asks licensees to submit written arguments and supporting evidence with the request to contest the citation. Also, internal changes to EOB to allow for in-person and telephonic informal citation conferences to be scheduled and conducted. Additionally, the newly revised request to contest citation form includes 2 options for licensees when requesting an informal conference. They can choose to either appear in person before the chief or designee at BAR headquarters, or participate in the informal conference by telephone. We request that the contact information be provided on the form, and an option to request a formal hearing before an administrative law judge as well. The informal citation conferences consist of a review of citation report and associated evidence prepared by the program representative in support of the citation issuance, information provided by the facility and/or technician during either the scheduled telephonic or in-person citation conference, the issued citation information and service documents, as well as citation fine amount and/or training required. The informal citation conference decision process, a decision from the BAR chief or the designee consists of consideration of the information gathered from the program representative's report, information from the issued citation, and the informal conference. A conclusion based on the independent review of all relevant information, a comparison of all informal conference conclusion BAR's table of conclusion to BAR's table of aggravating and mitigating factors to assess consistent fine amounts and or training hours. And a decision mailed to the appellant within 10 days. Now, there are some possible changes to the appeal process down the road. Assembly Bill 471, if enacted as last amended, would amend sections of the Business Professions Code to authorize BAR to, one, create a process for the informal review and recommendation on citations, establish an informal citation conference conducted by an independent 3-member panel consisting of 1 representative from the Bureau, the public, the repair industry. And it would also establish a remedial training program conducted by a BAR certified provider for minor violations of this chapter. And that concludes my presentation for today. Here's my contact information. Feel free to contact me for any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. I really appreciate your presentation on this, especially as it relates to AB 471 and potential for upcoming changes. Can you go back to slide 12 on that particular issue? Right there, the 3-member panel. The only thing that's uncertain to me or unclear to me is whether it would impact smog check violations. A 3-member panel is provided for in the draft, in the legislative language that's in draft form right now for violations of the Automotive Repair Act. Violations, smog check violations are that's in the Business and Professions Code of our statutes. Smog check violations are in the Health and Safety Code, and there's a specific informal hearing process that's called out for smog check violations by just a single individual. It says bar chief or bar or a designee of the chief. So I'm not sure that it'll have impact on necessarily smog check violations and citations issued as a result of that, any violations identified under the Health and Safety Code, but it certainly could have an impact on our current informal hearing process for unregistered activity. That's automotive repair dealers who haven't registered as an automotive repair dealer, because that is not a violation of the Health and Safety Code, but that's a violation of the Business and Professions Code, where that 3-member panel is potentially going to be established if that bill were to go forward. And then obviously any extension, as we have talked about and is the subject of the regulatory workshop this afternoon, citations to include violations not by unlicensed individuals, but registered, those who are registered automotive repair dealers who violate the Automotive Repair Act. So a 3-member panel would certainly come into play there. One other thought, I think in-person and telephonic informal conferences or hearings is going to be more difficult for a 3-member panel, and I think we will probably look, just speaking off the top of my head here, to look at online forums such as we have here through the virtual format that allows a representative, as is envisioned by this bill, a member of BAR, a member of the public, and a member of the auto repair industry to participate potentially in 3 different locales, and the best forum for doing that so as to make sure that we can have timely proceedings and not impact and the appellant who has to potentially travel. The easiest way to prevent some of that or eliminate some of those challenges and scheduling issues is to do a virtual conference, as we are, much like we're doing here today with this meeting. So I think that's something we'll take a look at if this bill is to get to the governor, and then again, if it's signed into law, we'll have to look at something like that. It'll all be spelled out in our regulations, but more to follow on that. And I wanted to share that with everyone as we kind of think about how that might play into some of our existing processes. Any questions or comments from the Bar Advisory Group? Okay. Oh, I do see one. He's been so quiet today. Jack Molodonov with the California Auto Body Association. Thank you, Jack.
Thanks, Pat, and I appreciate, Greg, your presentation. Thank you, and your comments, Pat, regarding AB 471. Obviously, that caught my attention as I've been involved in the legislation, and your analysis about how, if it passed as is, what impact will it have on the smog check appeals and unlicensed activity. Just playing it through. So with regard to unlicensed activity, if you issue a citation, I'm assuming that if the shop does pay the registration fee and registers, at that point, won't that be a corrected, some sort of corrected citation, as something like Matt Gibson mentioned earlier? It'll be addressed that way. I don't think there's going to be any issue of training in that scenario.
That is the corrective process. Yes, and the citation would most likely be withdrawn if the compliance is obtained.
Okay, and then with regard to the smog check, you're correct. Obviously, it's in the health and safety code sections are the ones that are applicable. Although the section you mentioned, 9884.8, which says you have to be an ARD initially before you become a smog check station. So I'm not sure on the citations, are the citations exclusively for smog check violations or underlying any any other violations?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and one probably for our legal counsel, but to me it covers violations of the Automotive Repair Act or those Business and Professions Code sections of the Automotive Repair Act. And our violations for smog check program, to my knowledge, don't cite, while they are automotive repair dealers, their underlying registration is as an automotive repair dealer. They also have a smog check station license under the Health and Safety Code. And the sections that are cited, if not always, are not under the Automotive Repair Act. It is for violations of primarily 44012 of the Health and Safety Code. Failure to perform a smog check inspection in accordance with our smog check manual and other inspection requirements.
Yeah, I'd be interested if there was anything, if assuming the bill passes, would there be anything that prevents you or prevents the BAR from also just continuing with the 3-member panel with regard to smog check violations? Because like I said, under the underlying, you have to be an ARD before you even get the smog check license. So I'm not sure whether anything would prevent you from doing that. It's just something to think about, because I can see where you have, two categories. You got the smog check folks who get an appeal. They only have, one individual. You're one in BAR designee, for example, here at Greg. But other folks go into a 3-member panel. I just, for consistency purposes, it makes sense to have everyone go under a 3-member panel, but I'd have to leave it, like you said, leave it to your legal counsel to take a look at and see whether you could go ahead and do that, just because the smog check station has to have an underlying, BAR license under the BMP code section. So anyway, I just wanted to, you brought that up, and I just wanted to comment on that. May require a little bit more analysis, but thank you very much.
I think we took a look at that previously in light of the fact that there was the panel that was envisioned for this legislation. And I don't know if it was you or someone else, and if you'll recall, if it was you, that we did take a look at it, and I believe that we had a concern with, or the issue was that the health and safety code is very specific, much like this draft legislation is. It says a 3-member panel. Health and safety code and the hearing or informal review or hearing process that's spelled out for smog check violations talks about the bar chief or designee. And I think when we explored this with our legal counsel, it was determined that that was kind of an overreach to kind of take that a designee to mean someone outside of the Bureau of Automotive Repair. It meant someone within the Bureau who works for and is employed by the Bureau, and not necessarily a panel of outside members. So maybe that might mean a change to the health and safety code to be in conformity with the current legislation that only speaks to violations of the Automotive Repair Act at this time. But maybe there's something that can be done to align those two areas of our laws. I'll take a look at it some more, though. Thank you. I didn't see who had their hand raised first or next, but I'll just take it in the order it appears on my screen. Ruben Parra with the California Automotive Teachers.
Thank you. So I just wanted to make a quick statement. I just want to say I appreciate the language on bullet number 3 on slide 12, where it states that the training is to be conducted at a bar certified provider. So thank you for putting that language in there. Thank you.
Well, that wasn't. I'll take no credit for that. That's the obviously the author, Mr. Lowe, working with those who are working closely with him on this bill. I think we see some value in that. Certainly, we want to make sure that, just like with smog check violations, training is done at a certified provider. What that would look like would have to be what the requirements for being certified would be. Still remains to be seen. That would have to be developed by the Bureau. Of course, the first step is to get the bill. The bill would have to be signed into law. And I just want to take an opportunity here to say that the Bureau has no approved position on this bill. We are here for technical assistance, and as we are here giving information to let people know of the potential for upcoming changes to our laws, but we do not have an approved position on this bill at this time. And next question or hand raised was from Johan Galla with the California Automotive Business Coalition, or at CalABC.
Thank you, Pat. I just wanted to appreciate and acknowledge not only the work that BAR is doing on AB 471. I realize there's no official position, but I know that collectively all the different associations, the different lobbyists, including ours, Jack Maladonoff, and others have worked on this bill, and we hope that it makes its way through. But I know that a lot of people don't attend the afternoon workshop session, and I just wanted to make sure that we acknowledge all the work that's being done, and we hope that it continues to move forward.
Yes, thank you very much, Johan, for the acknowledgments there. I did see that there were a number of associations in support of the bill, as I checked most recently on the latest committee analysis. I believe it was I'm not sure which committee it was that I read that. Maybe it was the Senate Judiciary Committee. I say that 3 times fast. And there was a large number of associations represented in support of this bill from the automotive repair industry. Other questions, comments? I don't see any more comments. Oh, nope. Let's open it up for public comment. Moderator, if you would, please. Open up that feature.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the Bureau, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, please click that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. And this is the moderator. I see that Johan has his hand raised again. I don't know if that's left over from last time or not. Oh, I guess it was. And at this point, it appears there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A feature?
Yes, thank you very much, moderator.
All right.
Any further additional comments from the advisory group? Seeing none, we will close out this agenda item. Thank you very much, Greg Pearson, for your excellent presentation.
Thank you, Pat.
All right, we're getting close to the end of the agenda. We have a couple of handouts, one of which is new. And the agenda item number 9 is an enforcement statistics update. And while there is no formal presentation with a PowerPoint, it is a regularly standing feature of our advisory group meetings as a handout that was provided in advance of the meeting and is publicly available on our website. Are there any comments? The data is pretty straightforward. It's been something, as I said, we've been reporting each quarter going back several years now. I think we're looking to make a change to it with the start of the fiscal year, the new fiscal year on July 1. We're looking to present some additional information as a result of some initiatives that have been proposed in the past through legislation that has not gone forward. It's actually, but it's something we still try to report on as a department. And rather than have this just be information that's reported on the department's website, we thought we'd bring it down to the advisory group level as well to present that information as it relates to an initiative called the Consumer Protection Enforcement Initiative, or CPEI, which was a legislative initiative from a few years ago that never was signed into law or never made it out of the legislature, but the department tries to comply with it with all of its healing arts programs and other regulatory programs. So we'd like to make sure that that information is accessible to everyone through our advisory group. So stay tuned for that and look to incorporate that at our next meeting on this enforcement statistics update. Any questions or comments? An advisory group, none. A moderator, to be in full compliance with our processes, we'll open it up for public comment.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the Bureau, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment on this item, please click that Q&A icon down at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, this is the moderator, and seeing no requests for public comment, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right.
And since we're taking these up one at a time, agenda item number 10, license processing data from our bar licensing program. In the spirit of reporting data from our licensing program along the lines of what we do with our enforcement program, we have now started to add a new feature, a handout only, once again, just on licensing processing timelines. And that is not going to be a PowerPoint presentation today and not planned for any time in the near future, but if anyone has any questions or comments relative to that handout that was provided in advance of the meeting, please raise your hand. I didn't see anything earth-shattering in that data. We have timelines that are established in regulation for processing various applications, automotive repair dealer registration applications, smog check station, technician, lamp brake station, and adjuster applications. Those are all established in regulation. I think there's probably even a footnote. If it's not on this one, we will make sure it is. I think it was missing from this presentation, this handout, but we'll make sure that that's in our next one. But we're well within those regulatory timeframes, although we have a much tighter time frame than the established in regulation. We have a goal of, I think, 30 days to process applications. And for the most part, we're meeting all of those across the board, with maybe an exception or two, and it was as a result of the impacts created by the pandemic. But very close to meeting those tight timeframes of 30 days, which are much tighter than what are allowed for in regulation. Any questions or comments? Our advisory group. Okay, let's go to the public on this one, agenda item 10. We'll open it up for public comment.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the Bureau, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, it appears there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you. And we can close out that agenda item and move to agenda item number 11. Agenda item 11 is for public comment on any items that were not addressed or covered in this agenda for this meeting. Our advisory group members, any public comment on any other items weren't addressed today? Seeing none, we'll open this item up for public comment.
All right, once again, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the Bureau, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment for items not on the agenda, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, seeing none, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Thank you, yes.
Yep.
Okay, our final agenda item is the next bar advisory group meeting, which is scheduled for a Thursday, no surprises there, as it usually is. Thursday, October 21, 2021. That'll be our final meeting of calendar year 2021, our fourth meeting of the year. Any suggestions for agenda topics? I'll open it up real briefly if anyone has anything, but certainly we will take suggestions even after the adjournment of today's meeting. But I always like to give an opportunity for those to give us some thoughts or ideas on things they'd like to hear of, in addition to the kind of our standing legislative and regulatory update and an update from the Department of Consumer Affairs Executive Office. And then our two handouts now that we're going to be giving on enforcement statistics and licensing statistics. Anything else that you'd like to hear from us on? And it can be a presentation from BAR, or it could be on something that's related to the auto repair industry, where we reach out to another regulatory agency. We've done that many times. And even trade associations who are implementing various programs, like the outreach program that is going on right now with the AC refrigerant recycling program. So we did that last meeting, as I recall. And I like to try to not have these agendas be so heavy on smog check. It seems like that gets us, there's a lot of focus on some of the changes going on in smog check, but BAR was put on the map for things other than smog check in the early 70s. And so our enforcement and our licensing and our regulatory responsibilities under the Automotive Repair Act, if there's anything in particular that anyone wants to hear relative to those duties, certainly want to be responsive and assist where we can with any education or updating of any processes outside the SMOG program. Aha, that triggered a couple of hands, I think. Jack Moladona with the California Auto Body Association.
Thanks, Pat. The one topic that I've gotten a few calls on from shops is the issue of stolen catalytic converters. That seems to be a big problem up and down the state. And when facilities are trying to reinstall or service these vehicles, there's a problem with getting these catalytic converters, the ones that have been approved by CARB, the CARB approved list. And so some of these cars are just sitting around. And I know that there's been some talk about making some exceptions there. And this is all due to the pandemic. And I don't know if that would be something where either BAR or CARB would be able to talk about, and how it impacts the auto repair facilities that are, trying to help consumers out there with the stolen catalytic converters. I did hear an incident where there was a big robbery of these catalytic converters over PG&E trucks. I think they stole like 40 of these catalytic converters because of the precious metals within these catalytic converters, and they just had a tough time being able to locate replacement catalytic converters. So anyway, that would be something to consider as a possible next topic. Thank you.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you, Jack, for raising that. We've been involved in a number of outreach efforts, and we've been working with the California Air Resources Board to look at potential for, especially as it relates to the affordability of some replacing a catalytic converter that's been stolen, how to potentially tie it in with a repair assistance type program along the lines of what we do for other smog check equipment or components that have to be replaced. Again, that's currently provided for income eligible participants, but we've been having some discussions with the California Air Resources Board, and then certainly some outreach and efforts that we've been working on about how to prevent the theft. And there's certain anti-theft shields that can be welded on to help prevent the theft of these parts. And we want to talk about that and get some information out there for everyone to be aware of. And lastly, on that subject, there's obviously new rules in play as a result of the California Air Resources Board's requirements that are making the replacement of catalytic converters maybe a little more challenging, but those have been in place for a number of years now. But yeah, we want to make sure that we're responsive to everyone's interests and needs and concerns about this issue. And it's a growing topic of concern, and where we can assist law enforcement, we have been providing our expertise in this area. Let's go to our next individual. I saw Bud Rice's hand. Bud is here representing the Independent Automotive Professionals Association, or IAPA.
All right, thank you, Pat. I think the real value of the BAG meeting is it brings the regulators together with industry, and in a way we try to figure out if there's a way to either better educate the consumer through some of the programs that are in place, or how do we better serve the consumer, or customers is how we look at them. So looking for ways that industry can do a better job at servicing their customers, and then having rules and regulations that match up with that, again, is what I think the Bar Advisory Group is all about. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I think it's all about. With that in mind, I think there's real value in storytelling, and by that I mean you guys run into stuff that, in many cases, I bet some of your guys come back into the office and they go, well, you wouldn't believe what happened today. And something has happened with a shop and a customer that is unbelievable. But to hear that story, obviously you have to mask the names of the innocent, that kind of thing. But I think coming up with, we had a complaint, and this is what the basis of the complaint was, and this is what the shop situation was. Here's what the consumer's point of view was, and this is what they thought it was, and here's what the resolution was of that. We leave these sessions, Pat, with information that we're gathering, that we share with each other, and then we go and we impact a lot of people with what we pull away from these sessions. So I don't know what the count, there's 60 people in here today, but you're impacting thousands when you really think about it, so having some storytelling that goes along with things that you guys have seen along the way may lead us, give us opportunities to raise our game a little bit, and maybe even do better at servicing the customers. That's my point.
Yeah, I like it. That's really very innovative and creative. It kind of dovetails with something that I was thinking about trying to incorporate either into the Bar Advisory Group meeting or a workshop, if you will. But I was thinking of a write it right type of a presentation. Certainly those can go a couple of hours by themselves if you're meeting with a shop, but kind of a scaled down version of the write it right, but you can bring in potentially real world examples from consumer complaints to that type of a presentation or dialogue on that topic. So I want to look at that a little further, explore that for maybe, if not the next meeting, one of the next. I don't know how challenging that would be, but I think we've got a few months before our next meeting. I'd like to put that to task ourselves with looking at doing that either at the October meeting or shortly thereafter.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting idea. Johan Gallo.
Thanks, Pat. To kind of dovetail on what Bud was just talking about, it's hard to believe as I sit here and we look at Executive Order 188-98, That was when officially Governor Wilson formed what we now know as the advisory, something that was only going to go a couple of years. It's gone 23 years, and we really appreciate all the work that's put into the BAG meetings and how many of the things that we solve, not only through regulation and legislation. I mean, look at the bills that we've worked on, look at all the different programs we've implemented. It was interesting. I was talking to a business that was getting into automotive mobile services. And I told them, I said, well, make sure you register with the Bureau of Automotive Repair. Well, we're not a building. Well, I think you need to look at the regulations that cover mobile services. So I really appreciate all the work that the Bureau staff has done and all the work that we have done collectively together over the last 23 years. But again, I believe these things are invaluable in the things that we solve working together. And as I said many times, if we create an environment where not only the industry, consumers, and the regulators win, then we've done our job. One other thing, it ties in with the comment Jack made on catalytic converters. And I know some of our members have voluntarily worked with local police departments, and they're actually offering their bays for services to engrave the consumer information on those catalytic converters. So when they get stolen, they can actually be recovered. And I know several of our members do that. They do it as a public service. And I just thought I'd share that with the group because I think it's another value of what the industry is doing to work with consumers and law enforcement on this crime that just seems to never end when it comes to these catalytic converters. Thank you for your time, and again, appreciate all you do.
Thanks, John. All right, let's go to our next raised hand, and we've got advisory group member Ruben Parra.
Just real quick, just wanted to let Mr. Bud Rice know that in the industry, we call what he described as case studies. So you're welcome.
Thank you. I'm writing that down myself. Any other suggestions? Obviously, this isn't the only opportunity to do that. You can send me an email. You can also send an email to our assistant here in the front office, Zach Richardson, whom you all know. All right, let's open it up for public comment before we adjourn one last time.
All right. This is the moderator, and at the direction of the Bureau, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I will go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, seeing none, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
And then just the last thing I'll say relative to this agenda item is that I hope to be able to, we'll know a lot more in September with the expiration of that governor's executive order. I think it expires on September 30th, but whether or not we'll be returning to the ability to hold in-person meetings or whether there still needs to be a virtual format afforded these types of events. I know many of you need to make travel arrangements far in advance of those meetings, so we'll get the information to you as quickly as we can once we know more. But it is my strong hope that we'll be returning to in-person meetings if we have obviously a safe and healthy environment to do so. All right, we'll close out this agenda item. And our last agenda item is the quickest one, adjournment. We'll adjourn today's meeting. I want to quickly, before we do so, say thank you to our moderators, Sarah Arani, and I know a co-moderator is on here with her. And then we have Cesar, who is also assisting with our recording and webcasting of the event. Thank you very much to all of our Department of Consumer Affairs partners in making these events run smoothly and successfully in my mind. I appreciate all you do. Thank you. And then thank you to all of our presenters. Did an outstanding job today. Thank you. Great work. Always very high level of professionalism and expertise shown in these presentations. And I hope everyone understands how much work goes into putting an event like this and these presentations together. It is a lot of work. And then last but not least, to Zach Richardson, who spends a lot of his work, his days. As soon as we adjourn today, we'll be working on the next one. And it may get a few days down, but and away from we'll be working to plan for the next meeting. So thank you to Zach for all the work he does in coordinating these events as well. I guess that's it. And to lastly, to all the advisory group members for your participation and your ongoing support and efforts to work with us and collaborate on the work that we are charged with doing. We value your input and appreciate all of the efforts you do to run successful businesses and represent your industry through your trade associations. We've really, as a consumer myself, I just value the work of the auto repair industry to keep millions of cars safely running and great working condition each and every day on our roads. So thank you to all who do this. And with that, we will adjourn and see you again in a few months on October 21, 2021. Thank you all.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, workshop at 2 o'clock. Yep. Don't forget the workshop at 2 p.m. on this same link.
Same bat channel.
Yep, same bat channel. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh.